right, everybody. Good afternoon to you guys here. I think we do have that going on here. Um, okay. There's some S we're gonna do today. You go, what is S? Supplement. You guys know this is Math 227 supplement. We got to supplement. We got to supplement you guys, whatever that even means. So let me share with you guys how we're gonna supplement today. I'm gonna go here. Maybe I just do it here in the browser. Let's go back here. And okay, 227. And we were working on the Poisson. We were working on yesterday the mean and variance standard deviation for the binomial. Mu is NP. You guys remember this shortcut? Nice shortcut. And then, a shortcut for the standard deviation as well. So make sure you work on those. But what I'm going to do here now for you guys is the following here. On a Poisson distribution, we got to go back and talk about this idea of intervals. Do you guys remember that Poisson? That's the formula. We're not using the formula. We're using the TI, though. And you go, oh, good. Poisson, you need mu, the mean, and you need X as the number of arrivals. But that idea of intervals, we're going to have to go back and focus on. But in order to really focus on that, what I wrote, this is years ago, intervals here, okay? It's a couple of years now. During the transition, I wrote a lot of notes because of the fact that we were transitioning. And ladies and gentlemen, let's go through that here. Where are we at? Let's go get through here. Let's put those notes in there for you. So, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to have to transition and do a little bit of S. Okay, what is S? Now, I'm having you guys look at that, and what I'm going to do in my side over here, I'm going to get this out and go, okay, let's look at I'm going to kind of label this something else today. We're going to focus on some S, supplement. Let's focus on this idea called intervals. So we can go back to the iPad. And before we do that, what I want you guys to know is, let me start off from first principles. Do you guys happen to know what a ratio is? What's a ratio? Because a ratio is also known as a rate. So this is AKA a rate. But it's also a relationship between two quantities. A and B. But very often, if you ever look at a book, a math book, and they call it ratio, they'll have A colon B. And this is the phrase A to B. Okay? And that's a ratio, but this is every ratio, this relationship, you can also write it as a fraction. So you go, okay, can we think of it as a fraction? Yeah, and this is really almost in some ways the essence of a fraction. And I got news for you. There's one thing that people hate more than anything is the idea of a fraction. Oh my God, I hate fractions, right? Well, it might be because maybe you didn't focus on the meaning of it and you just went to numbers, right? So, okay, you might say, well, what do we really mean by that? All right, well, we have A over B. It's a rate. So, if I go back to the browser and we look at this first piece of information, okay, let's read what this says. It says, in a recent year, there are 450 births. In a recent year, there are 450 births. Wherever this is, who cares, right? So what I want to ask you guys this question here. We can say this in words. There are 450 births to a year. Now, just looking at this piece of information, this is really a ratio. It's really a rate. You guys remember I did that worksheet for you guys, probability review. I said, please do this for homework. It's the same thing. It's the same thing. So if you look at this, you say, what does this really mean? Well, they gave you one number, which is 450. And then they gave you another number, which is a year. You go, no, they didn't. They didn't give me a year. Well, they did give you a year, sorry. You might say, they didn't give me a number. I'll say, yes, they did. How do you represent a year? $365 what? Days. So remember this, ladies and gentlemen. This can be described this way. 450 to 365. But that 450 represents something. We can describe it as 450 colon 365. What does that 450 represent? Births. What does this other number represent? A year. What does this symbol represent? Oh, I forgot to do that. And you guys know this already. What does that represent? So that's a ratio. Didn't you guys have odds before? It's the same thing. It's a ratio. So we can write this as a fraction, 450, and that represents, I'll put B for births, over 365 what? Days. All right, I'll spell it out, whatever. So there you guys go. Okay? And that's why sometimes they call this thing a what? A rate. And that's why you might even see it or hear it known as a birth rate. What's the birth rate? Well, there you go. 450 births, 365 days. Now, so this isn't new for you guys because it's like what you had with odds. You know, odds was a ratio. Number of successes to the number of failures. It's a ratio. So this idea of ratios is everywhere. It's powerful and it's meaningful. And it's used in a lot of scenarios. It's used in Poisson, which is why we have to go back and talk. How do you use it in a Poisson distribution? All right. Now, if you go back to my worksheet there, that's the first sentence. And then the question is going to be, and this is really in relation to Poisson, and that's why it has the title, Interval Worksheet for the Poisson Distribution, because these are all means, really. And then the question is, what is the mean number of births in a question one is in a month period? Now, that's a tricky kind of thing to say. Because in a month, ladies and gentlemen, they had to define it for you. I know in a month, you might have 30 days, you might have 31 days. You might have 29 days. You might have 28 days. So, the real question is going to be the following. How many births? I'm going to keep that up. How many births are there in a month? You go, no, not month, but in what? 30 days. Now remember this. When you did this before, that first week, what are they really talking about? Because you guys did this before. It's back, but we got to emphasize this. Got to drive it home. What am I talking about? Do you guys remember? In that worksheet, when they say to you, how many births, do you know how many births? That's the question. You're going to call that X. It's like algebra. You go, oh, no. Algebra. How many births are there in 30 days? You're going to create, here's the key. You're going to create another ratio. That's the key. What do I mean by creating another ratio? What does that mean, to create another ratio? Do you guys know? This will be X what? Births to 30 what? Days. Because this is the question, and in algebra, the question is the letter. It's the variable. In algebra, they go, how many? Well, you don't know. Call it X. But they gave you 30 days. So you now have X to what? 30. Here's my X, and then here's my what? 30. Now, if you guys remember here, they're asking you how many births are there in a month if you know how many births are in a year. Do you remember what you had to do? What did you have to do? Here's the other key. Key 2. Create a what? A proportion. Key. What's a proportion? Do you guys know what a proportion is? Anybody know what a proportion is? Well, let's get out our definition again. Definition of a proportion, ladies and gentlemen. A proportion is equal what? Ratios. So you put A over B equals C over D. What do you do now? You what? Cross what? Cross multiply. So with cross multiplication, ladies and gentlemen, you got AD equals BC. If you guys remember that, that's cross multiplication. They really mean diagonal across. So, ladies and gentlemen, this is the information you guys use and need. A proportion. There's the deal. Proportion is equal ratios. Now, here's the thing here, ladies and gentlemen. Remember what you did, and I said you always have to do? You're going to set these two ratios, which are rates. I'm going to copy that, okay? You're going to set these two equal to each other. The one they gave you has to equal the question here. And what must you always have? Always, always, always. If you guys remember that worksheet that you did in that video, what do you always have to have? And if you're going to work with a proportion ever in your life, and it's the most meaningful thing you will ever see, proportions, what must you have? You have to have this. This is where people make mistakes, always. It's a very fundamental mistake. The units have to be consistent. You can't be random with your ratios. You can't be random with these fractions. You can't be, oh, let me just make it up. You can't do that. What do I mean by consistency? If birth is on top, it's on top over here. If days are on bottom with the first fraction, they're on bottom over here. So what this really is the rate of 450, which, yes, that's births, to 365. Yes, that's days, x to 30. Okay, you guys okay with that? So they're saying that if the original rate is there's 450 births in a year, which is 365 days, how many births are there in a month, which is 30 days? How do you find the value of x? Because that's the answer. How do you do that? You guys know? You cross what? Multiply, because you have a proportion. 30 times 450 becomes what? 365 times x. Now what do? You divide both sides now by what? 365. Cancel. What does x become? 30 times what? 450 over 300 and what? 65. So here you go, ladies and gentlemen. Here you go. What are you going to do? You're going to get what? 30. Get out your calculator times what? 450 divided by what? 365. And ladies and gentlemen, what do you get now? You know what my instructions were? What are my instructions? Approximate to the nearest what? Tenths. Okay, approximate to the nearest tenth. So you go, well, what does that mean? What digit is in the tenths position? 9. Look at the digits to the right. What is it? It's an 8. What do you guys do? Add 1 to the 9. What does that give you? 10. This is the answer. You say, it's the answer to what? What does 37 mean? That's how many. This is 37. There's 37 births in a 30-day period, 30-day interval, a 30-day, a month. So if there's 450 births to a year, there's 37 births to a month, ladies and gentlemen. And there you go. There it is. Easy peasy lemon squeezy. So there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. What do you guys think? Isn't that what we did in that first week? I said, hey, watch this video, do the homework. right? The real issue for people is when you read it, it's language. And then they forget, like, oh, my units have to be consistent. Whatever you have on top has to stay on top. What do you have on bottom? And that's the thing. And you could do a lot with ratios and proportions. I mean, some of you guys might even go into science because of it. Because there's a lot of ratios and proportions there, a lot of unit conversion. Some of you guys might say, oh, now I could be a nurse. Okay. Because there's a lot there too. It's proportions, these rates. So it's even in probability. It's even in Poisson. So ladies and gentlemen, this is good stuff. This is why I created this worksheet. What does number 2 say? Yeah, so there's still, for number 2, 450 births in a year, 365 days. But in number 2, what do they want to know now? How many births are in a week? And you go, oh, Mr. Judge, I don't know what a week is. And I'm going to say to you guys, what's a week? 7 days, okay? Where does that 7 days go? Top or bottom? 7 days. Where does the days go? Why? Because you have to be consistent with your what? With your units there. You guys know what I mean? That's my point to you guys. This is where people make a mistake. 365 days, that's 7 days. Do you guys know how many births? No, that was the what? That was the question. So you put X, and then that's a B. Let's be consistent, lowercase. And I don't know. I don't like inconsistency. You guys know what I mean? People don't like inconsistency. What's the births? What do you guys do now? What do you do? Cross multiply. What happens when you cross multiply? What do you get? 450 times 7 is going to be what? 365 times X. And then what do you guys do? Divide both sides by 365. What happens on the right? Cancels. You get now X is 450 times 7 divided by 365. And what do you get? To the nearest tenths, because they say approximate your answer to the tenths. You go, oh, I know what that is. That's 8.6. 8.6? 8.6 what? Births. And that's 8.6 births in how many days? 7 days now. Bless you. Bless you. Boy, it's contagious. Is there allergies going out there? I should have took Claritin or something. All right, ladies and gentlemen, let's take a look here. What does it now say, number 3? Right, so you have to know how many births are they in a day? Well, go back. What's the original ratio? 450 births to 365 days now. And then they want to know how many births. That's X births in, what's the interval now? In a day. So that's one what? Day, right? Okay. So when I set this up, was I consistent? Births to births. We don't know what that is. Day to day. Is that right? And notice what happens here. What is anything divided by 1? What is X divided by 1? Is that X? What's 450 divided by 365? 450 divided by 365. What do you get? 1 point what? Is that 1.2 to the nearest tenths? Ladies and gentlemen, that's 1.2 what? Isn't that 1.2 births? So what you're seeing is the daily birth rate. The daily birth ratio, 1.2 births to 1 day. That's why we put 1.2 here. These are rates. Now you guys can be science majors and go into nursing maybe. I don't know, whatever you guys like. But this is the fundamentals of how you deal with a ratio and a proportion. It's a very important idea, a very important concept. Extremely important. You know, to give you an idea about how knowledge is power and how knowledge gives you opportunity. You know, back in the day, I get to be an old man now, right? Old man Daniel Judge. I was a high school student, you know, deciding what to do out of high school. I didn't know what to do. I didn't want to go to college. Who does that? I don't want to go to college. Wasn't this kid. I wasn't going to go to college. I didn't do my homework in high school. And, you know, I had other concerns at the time as a kid, you know. Homework wasn't the highest priority. So, you know, you graduated high school and you go, what are you going to do with your life? Everybody's like, oh man, I gotta, what am I going to do? I've got to be an adult. I don't know what to do. I was going in the Marines. So I'm getting out of here. So many people make that kind of decision, right? So, you know what I did? I still remember I went down to that, you know, right there in Montebello. It's still there, that recruiting station in Montebello by the, yeah, it's by Popeyes, but it's by the gym. Yeah, by Ball. Was it still Bally's or what is it now? Don't know what it is. What is it? I think it was Bally's back in the day. Yeah, and everybody in the world used to go there. It was the pickup spot. In case you guys didn't know, when it started gyms. You see the ladies go to the gym with hair, makeup, and perfume. The times have changed. Okay, so that was like what? That was where you hung out at the gym. You know, and it was always a joke. The pickup spot, Bally's in Montebello. So I went around. I didn't go to Bally's. You know, I was going to the recruiting station. And I remember taking the ASVAB. Anybody here take the ASVAB before? You guys know what that is? Armed Services, Vocational Aptitude Battery. And on the ASVAB, from my memory, yeah, I think there were like 3 parts. There was the language part. There was the mechanics part. It's like mechanics, I think. And math. Yeah, it's a basic skills test, common sense basic skills test. I guess they want you to have some common sense in the military. I guess that's helpful. So I remember taking the ASVAB and doing that stuff. But I remember on the math portion, I got 100% on the math. You know what was on the math portion really? What you guys are looking at right now. Ratios and proportions. That was it really from my memory. Or from my memory, at least that was the major part of it. And so I remember all the recruiters going, oh my God, you got 100% on the math part. And if I remember, I might have gotten 100% of the whole thing, but I don't remember that part. I'm too old to remember. And they were all excited because they go, you could do anything in the military now as an enlisted. So I scored very well in the math portion. They were happy. All because I knew, there's 7 days in a week. 365 days in a year. You guys know what I mean? I could compute these ratios. I can do what I'm showing you guys. Because I had to remember. I remember I had a math instructor in high school. Remember, I finally got out of beginning algebra. I learned something there. And this was in beginning algebra. Solving an equation, solving a ratio and proportion. Beginning algebra. So, because I had beginning algebra skills, I aced the math portion. And I was good to go to anything I ever wanted to be and do in the Marines. And Probably, I don't really look at the other services, really. I don't know. It opened the doors. Do you guys know what I mean? No, you guys don't. So believe it or not, whenever I see this stuff and do it, I just go back to memory lane and I remember, oh my God, how much, and I think in my mind as I'm going through these things, like how much you guys can really do in your life if you master ratios and proportions. You can go in a STEM career. I mean, my God. Remember I showed you guys all the math that I did and people thought you're a genius. And I'm doing like beginning algebra, for Christ's sake. Just making sense of what you do, thinking about it, using it. That's what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to use this stuff. And when you do, I guess people think, oh, great. But it's kind of interesting to me how many doors and opportunities you can have just by doing the basics. Because this stuff is everywhere. Even the stuff I showed you guys yesterday or the other day, right? The mean, expected value. It's used in a lot of places and doing a lot of things. So I don't know. Again, education is about power and it's about you learning how to be successful and stuff. And that's just those are just the lessons in my life that I look at when I go over this. Those are the things that go through my head. Interesting. So, if I go back now and I look at this next question, right? Now, this next question isn't a very positive question. I apologize. You guys see the next question? It's horrible. Murders? Yikes. Murders. Do people talk about murders and murder rate? Yes? Well, I don't. When I think of this, I actually think of the data kind of like, believe it or not, every city has a murder rate. It's probably good to know. Every country has a murder rate. It's probably good to know. Okay. You want to know about these things, ladies and gentlemen, and you might hear about it. It might be in the news. The murder rate is blah, 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 blah. You're like, what are they talking about, right? So, I mean, it's not positive to talk about a murder rate, but it's realistic. And that's what we're here for. We're here to deal with the reality, right? So even you guys don't even know, but back when I grew up again, old man Judge, back in the 80s. Okay, now you know where Mr. Judge grew up in the 80s. No wonder he says pretty in pink. Pretty in pink. It's from the 80s. Lemon squeeze. I think that's later. I don't know. I don't know where I got that one. I don't think that's 80s. But the murder rate, you guys don't know, in LA was through the roof in LA. It was something like over 500 murders in a year. Well, that's what I'm saying. Back in the 80s, the news, they were going crazy. They were going like 550 murders in a year in LA. That's over one murder a day, blah, blah, blah. And people were like, the public was scared because they thought the youth has gone wild. Those 80s kids were out of control. Do you guys know what I mean? That was the implication. Like, what's going on? What are we doing wrong? Our kids in LA are growing up violent. And then all of a sudden, ladies and gentlemen, you know what happened? The murder rate declined dramatically. It's crazy. If you knew a little bit about this history, we got all these experts talking about why the murder rate was climbing, and everybody was wrong. The experts were all wrong about the murder rate. It took generations for people to go back and study this to figure out what really happened and why. Trying to remember, there's some gentlemen here that won the Nobel Prize in economics. They wrote a book called Freakonomics. So if you guys are interested in some amazing like probability and statistics and some experiments that these guys did, they solved this question. Freakonomics. It's an old book. It's been out for quite some time. And they're these trailblazing economists. You know, they wrote that book. It's a bestseller. They made a movie. And it's really about things that we do and think about probability and statistics, everything we're talking about. You know what their conclusion, you know what they discovered? You guys really want to know what they discovered about this? Why did the murder rate in LA and really throughout the nation actually decline dramatically? What they figured out is, I forget the year, 68, 70. When did abortion become illegal? Yeah, when abortion became legal, I don't remember if it was 68 or 70. I really don't remember. But when abortion became legal, exactly 18 years later, the murder rate declined significantly. What they concluded was it was related to that legalization of abortion. Is it 73? I don't remember. Something like that. Yeah, I don't remember all the details. It's an interesting observation. I think the implications were what? What were the implications? Somehow, and I'm not making this a political thing, so don't think about that. You know, I'm not, this is not the message. This is trying to motivate you to get excited about ratios and proportions. That's what it is. So now you want to do your homework. Go, oh my God, this has a lot of meaning. I'm going to do my homework. That's really what it is. So I'm not trying to tell you what to believe with this, right? But they're saying what they concluded, and you guys can read the book if you want. And I'm paraphrasing, but the idea behind that was, well, you had all these unwanted kids growing up in families, that the effect of being unwanted was detrimental to society, and it showed up in the murder rate, is what they're saying. Interesting observation. They're thinking of it in that way. That once abortions became legal, there was less what? Of so-called unwanted children. And if that doesn't mean because abortion was legal that kids weren't unwanted, in my opinion, but it might, less is what the phrase is, right? Less. Maybe there's something to it. Maybe there's something not to it. I don't know. So it's not a political message to you guys, but it is out there in literature and research. There could be something to that. So if you want to look at that, look at Freakonomics. Don't blame Mr. Judge for that conclusion. It's not my conclusion. That's their conclusion. They won the Nobel Prize. I didn't. And it's an interesting observation. What do you guys think? Is there some sense to that maybe? That could be. There could be. Rise of technology that increases the murder rate or decreases technology? You know, it is easier to get caught in a lot of ways, but you always kind of got caught, but it is easier. You know, there's a lot of cameras everywhere, ladies and gentlemen. Not only that, your phone is going to give you away. And people aren't that smart. They're just not that smart. You know, you're being tracked. You're being tracked. At this very second, we know where you're at. That information is being gathered. It's being tracked. Do you guys know how it's tracking you? Your phone pings. Your phone actually pings different locations. Yeah. Yeah, it pings. It gives your location. It's being logged. Their phone's location is constantly being logged. It's constantly being logged. So even if you did things like, you know, for example, there's always these articles that come out. Somebody they committed insurance fraud. You guys know what I mean? Like their car disappeared and it was burned to the ground, and now they try to file an insurance claim because they want to get rid of the car. And they investigate. You know what they find at times? That the person who filed the insurance claim was at the location where the car was burned. What are the chances of that? Not very good. So they'll catch you even with that. And they go, how do they catch people? Because the phone pings local towers. It's pinging. Pinging is just what? It's like kind of notifying, hey, where are you? They're communicating. Your phone does that. I thought I even heard that it does it even when it's off. So sometimes people go, I'm just going to turn my phone off. That won't help. I don't know if that's true or not. Edward Snowden says it's not true. Or he says it's true that even when it's off, they have ways to ping and find you. According to Snowden, that's his claim. I don't know. Yeah. Don't know. I'm just saying, if you're up to things... I don't know how to... No, I'm not saying if you're up to things, don't use your phone. Don't bring your phone with you. No. I'm just saying, if you're up to things, you're going to eventually be caught. There's a good chance you'll be caught. That's all I'm saying. So don't be up to things. You know. Huh? Never heard that one. Oh, it records you? Yeah. Well, even on your phone, like for example, what people don't know too, you see, this was known for a long time. When I grew up, this was known. You don't say things over a telephone line. Well, over telephone lines, you don't say things because even the technology back when I was a kid, they had a way to record it and flag certain phrases. Like if you threaten the life of a president and you do it over the phone, the Secret Service showed up at your house. You go, how did they know? Your phone. So you never did those kind of things. It was known, no, don't say those things over your phone. So technology today, you kind of wonder, I'm having conversations with my friends, and they start saying things over their cell phone, and I have to say, hey, be careful with what you're saying because, you could be recorded. I'm not warning them to, even when they're joking. Don't be joking. Don't joke. You might be what? Recorded. Even remember said the microphone's here in the room? Ooh, the school stuff. Don't do things over the school server. Don't do it over the school server. Don't say things. Don't do it because the district, they do have access to it. They have access. I even watched a video where the trustees were laughing because they were reviewing district email or something for fun. And I don't think they're supposed to do that, but they're laughing at what goes through. Guess when people have nothing to do all day, they read your emails. So be careful, ladies and gentlemen, with everything you do. Technology is monitoring you in ways you haven't ever considered. Oh, I don't know. Don't even have social media. Oh, I'll tell you guys another story. You're going to love this. I'm not going to mention who, but I know somebody who went through the Sheriff's Academy. Okay, it was my wife. She went through various police academies, right? She went through the Sheriff's Academy. And in the Sheriff's Academy, believe it or not, they order you, do not drink. They tell you what to do, ladies and gentlemen. And if you actually violate their rules, they'll kick you out. It's an integrity violation. If you lie, they'll kick you out. And there's a lot of people that get kicked out for lying and doing dumb stuff. A lot of these sheriff, what do they call them? They're candidates or something, right? They go through the academy, trainees, blah, 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 whatever that is, right? So they do a lot of stupid things and they get caught, they get kicked out. Dumb stuff. Really dumb stuff. And they should know better and they don't, and they get kicked out. And then they're never going to be in the police force ever, because once you get kicked out for these integrity violations, no one's going to want to put you through an academy again. Serious stuff, ladies and gentlemen. So anyway, So some of these trainees, whatever you want to call them, candidates, blah, 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 they're told, we don't want you guys drinking. And over the weekend, guess what some of these candidates did? They drank. They went out to Palm Springs. They were having a party. You guys know? Couple of males, couple of females, over the weekend, things happen. Out in Palm Springs, drinking. They're supposed to be studying and doing whatever they're supposed to do. And they got caught. How do you think they got caught? They posted their adventure on social media. So what were the sheriffs doing? Monitoring their social media. They got caught. They pulled them in front of the class, started calling them names like, hey, Pina Colada, come over here. Like, what? What'd you do this weekend? What'd you do? They tested them. See if they're going to tell the truth. If they lied, they're gone. If they told the truth, maybe they'll keep them and they'll make them suffer in some other way. So they were smart enough to tell the truth. Okay? They didn't lie. The second they lied, you're out. Bye. No, there's no, there's gone. So, what happened there is they told the truth. And so I guess they decided to keep them, but they made their life so miserable for the rest of the time. They had that label, Pina Colada, come over here. You guys don't know how they treat you in the academies. And so, yeah, they had to do a lot of, let's say they made their life real miserable. Another quick story. Some of these guys who are outstanding candidates, the day they were going to get their badge, or I should say the week before they're going to get their badge, at their badge ceremony, there's a badge ceremony. And a week before, they gave them an assignment to do. They wanted them to do a review of their instructors, all their drill instructors. Yeah, it's a peer review of all the, review of the drill instructors. And they had to write pages of a review. They make them write. Okay, you got to write. And so these guys decide, you know what we're going to do? We're not going to write all these pages. You do 3, I do 3, the other person does 3, and we'll copy them and we'll turn them in. They wanted to minimize their what? Their work. You know what happened? They got caught. Some of these guys were going to get an award, special awards for being outstanding and recognized at the badge ceremony. The day of the badge ceremony, they pulled them in. And you know what they told them? Call your families. Tell them not to show up. You're not getting your badge. You're getting kicked out. Bye. End of story for these guys. So they got, yes, it's like 2 weeks before graduation. They get their badge, prior. It's not just that. They got to go back and tell their family. What do you tell your family? What do you tell your wife? Guess what, honey? You know the job I had and blah, blah, blah. Guess what? We did this. They go back tell their family. They told them, don't call your family, tell them not to show. It's the way it works. Isn't that heavy? I was like, whoa. I was like, are you serious? And they were going to get these awards for being, they got these special scholarships even to get some of these outstanding. They're former military even, and they pulled this military stuff that, they just pulled some stuff they shouldn't have done. Integrity, ladies and gentlemen. Integrity violation. Why do you think they have to kick him out? Anybody know? Why do you think they have to do that? Because if a good lawyer finds out one day that they were busy lying through the academy and doing these kind of things, what happens when they file a report on somebody and they arrest somebody? Yes, so it gets thrown out. So they got to get rid of them. They got no choice. Isn't that interesting? So what's the point again I'm saying to you guys? Don't mess around. It's not go commit a crime and don't use your phone. No, don't do anything, because what you do in the dark eventually comes to light. Trust me on that. You think you get away, you don't. Those are lessons. If you're smart, you listen to them, you learn from them. But not everybody does that. Some people go, no, not me. I'm going to get away. No. They'll catch you. You guys know what I mean? Isn't that amazing? Anyway, in a recent year, there were 275 murders in a city. What is the mean number of murders in what? 30 days. Let's write this down. 275 what? Murders in a what? In a year? Isn't that the first rate they gave you? You guys know what I'm saying? And then what do you have to do with that? You got to know how many days are in a year? 365 what? Days. Now, you have to set that equal to the first one is in what? What's the first one? First one is in how many murders? You don't know. That's X what? Murders in a month? How many days are in the month that they defined for you guys? 30 days. Okay? Now, again, take a look, ladies and gentlemen. What do you guys want to do? Be consistent. Murders have to be on top. Days have to be where? On the bottom. You got to be consistent with the units. If you're not, it's going to be an issue. You're not going to get the right answer. And that's historically why students in that first worksheet, they didn't do well. Because they were inconsistent with the units where they place them. They think they could be random. So now, ladies and gentlemen, what do you guys do? Cross what? Multiply. 275 murders to every what? 365 days becomes X murders to every what? 30 days. So you get now what? 30 times 275 is 365x. Divide both sides by 365, ladies and gentlemen. You get your cancellation. What is x? 30 times what? 275 over 365. Okay? Okay, you guys see what I'm saying? Isn't that just like what we did before with the last three examples? It's very much the same. I'm telling you, this is such an important tool to know how to do. It opens doors, you know. So let's get out that TI now, okay? 30 times 275 divided by what? 365. What is x going to be here again? What is it? 22.6. 22.6 what? Murders. Sorry, I hate to be so, but this is real stuff. 22.6 murders in how many days? In a 30-day interval. And, this is, oops, we want to keep that yellow or orange. That's how you guys do this. That's really how you find the rate in a different interval. You take the original rate that was gathered by the data. Now you can use any interval you want. So, like, for example, the next question, that's like number 4. Number 5 is, hey, what if it's a 10-day interval? Number 5, they want to know a 10-day interval. They could define it that way. They could define it in 10 days. They can define it any way they want. So you might say, well, how do I do that? Okay. I copied, ladies and gentlemen. Let's do this. What do I change now? Yeah, down here, this is now in a what? A 10-day interval. 10 days. Cross what? Cross multiply. So you get what? 10 times 275 becomes what? 365x. Is that right? You change that denominator. Divide both sides now by 365. So you cross that out. So now x becomes 10 times 275 over 365, okay? So now you can find the murder rate in a 10-day interval, okay? 10-day interval. So let's do that. 10 times 275 divided by 365. And ladies and gentlemen, what do you get? 7.5 what? Murders. So in a 10-day interval now, you can say there's 7.5 murders based on that original rate. So you guys can convert that to any interval you like. Doesn't matter what it is. So that's an important detail. And this is like powerful stuff. Okay, what's the next question? How many murders are now in a week? In a week now. In a week. So you're going to start again. What's the original rate they gathered data? 275 murders to every what? 365 days is X murders. They defined it in a week. How many days are in a week? 7 days. Okay, you guys okay with that? See what happens here. 7 times 275 becomes 365 times x. Divide both sides now by what? 365. Seven times 275 divided by what? 365. And how many murders now in a week? That's 5.3, right? Because that's 27. So the nearest tens, that'll be 5.3. 5.3 murders. So ladies and gentlemen, you're getting 5.3 murders in a what? In a week. 7 days. 7 days. 5.3. So, I mean, that should have some meaning for you. Like if you live in a town somewhere and you go, no, you know what? This week, there's like 5.3 murders in a week. Wow. 5.3 bodies pop up around the city every what? Every week. Do you guys know what I mean? Has meaning. Okay? So, this stuff is, you guys read about birth rates, you read about murder rates, and then let's do the next one. They want to know how many murders is it in a day, right? So then the last one there for the murders, number 7, is how many murders in a day now. Now, when they say day, what do they mean? They mean one day. Is that right? So for number 7, remember, there's 275 what? Murders in 365 what? Days. They want to know how many murders. Remember, that's your variable x. X murders for every one day. X over 1. Now, anything divided by 1 is itself. So that just means x is 275 over what? 365. Because x divided by 1, right? Anything divided by 1. So now, go over here, your TI. 275 divided by what? 365. What is x going to give you? There's notice this, okay? There is point what? 8 murders per what? Per day. So even if you said, hey, Mr. Judge, what happened to that? That's murders per day, by the way. We can keep that unit. Just to kind of remind you, you always want to be consistent with the units. What do I mean by be consistent? What do I mean by that? If murders are on top in your first fraction, they got to be on top in the second fraction. If days are on the bottom in the first fraction, they got to be on the bottom in the second fraction. Equal fractions, equal ratios is what we call a proportion. We solve proportions. We got 3 knowns and 1 unknown value. And ladies and gentlemen, one of the most useful tools you'll ever see, and it's fundamental. It's fundamental, very useful in everything. It's not even just STEM. You take it everywhere else, They should be talking about this stuff in other topics. Even in recipes, you want to be a cook. Anybody know what I'm talking about? You want to be a chef? You got to go to chef school. Let's say you go to chef school. You're going to be a chef. You know what, ladies and gentlemen? You do have to work with ratios and proportions. If you go to a formal school, you will. It's not like, asking mom or grandma or dad or whoever, hey, how do you do this? Oh, I just put a pinch of that, pinch of this, and this, and this. It's not necessarily that in a formal setting. That they do have chefs who they take algebra. You go, what? Yeah, they take algebra. You go, really? Chefs take algebra? Yeah. You guys know why? Why do they do that? Anybody here cook? Do we have any chefs in the room? Sometimes they have students, they're chefs. That's how they work. They've gone to school to cook. How about trade tech? Do they have a good cooking school there? Yeah. Culinary arts, yeah. Huh? Yeah, exactly. They got to know how much to order, how much they use per day, so they don't run out. Because in those businesses, I'll tell you, it's a tough business. It's the hardest business to be in. Because you got to be consistent, and you can't run out. I mean, and it's the cost, like we talked about yesterday, revenue versus cost. You need profit. So the money you bring in and the cost. So they look at the proportions and how much it costs, and you create a ratio. You create proportions, and now you can create I got to cook for 30 people. Oh, we got to cook for 300 people? They got to be able to project with ratios and proportions. This is what I'm saying. This opens doors for you. These kind of things. So to kind of remind you guys a little something here, you guys are going to like this, right? You go, no, I'm not going to like this. Well, you know what I've done? Let's go to Canvas. Where are we going here? Homework number what? 3, right? I'm going to do this for you guys. I'm going to put that here in your homework. However, no, you guys are going to want to see this. Hold on. Is this stuff going to be on your test? Yes. Let me share this with you guys. On this link, let's go over here. On this link, you say, what's on the link? Intervals for Poisson is where I got it in that Statistics Online transition. I put the link in YouTube there, right? You see this video? You say, what video? I just clicked on that. What do you think I went over? I got the solutions for you guys. I got the solutions even for your homework there. Why? Because you're supposed to do homework, is that right? And your homework's going to help you be successful. And in fact, your homework's going to help you be successful in a lot of different environments that you may end up in. You don't know where you're going to be. You might go in the Marines. You might be a chef. Who knows where you'll go? But you'll use ratios and proportions. And, if you do, they might think you're a genius. And then you get your promotion. They go, oh, let's promote the genius, hopefully. And it's really not being a genius. It's doing what? Beginning algebra. Just kind of throw that out there, just so you guys know. So next time people try to tell you, oh, who needs algebra? Really? It's not because it's not useful. I mean, it's everywhere in everything. Algebra is, and in fact, where did algebra come from? I got you guys for a few more minutes. Where is algebra? Well, you guys know the word. The word is an Arabic word, algebra. Arabic word that gives you guys a hint and a hint and a clue. Right? Where's your number system come from? We work with what's called the Hindu Arabic number system. It's like it comes from Asia and the Middle East. So this is where this stuff comes from, these tools. At one point, the Middle East was the center of science in the world. At one point in time. Okay. Algebra. It's kind of like. My mother's maiden name, my mom's side, their last name is Alamansa. And you ever hear of the city called Alhambra? And you go, but that's a Spanish word. Well, guess what, ladies and gentlemen? The Moors occupied Spain for 1,000 years. Where did the Moors come from? Northern Africa. And they brought along, a lot of the language. So you might even find in Spanish words their Arabic origin. Almansa. How do you know it's in Arabic? Because of the al. Al or even el, right? You guys know that al. That's where this stuff comes from. In case you guys didn't know. Anyway, so don't get mad at who. You go, oh my God, this algebra is keeping me down. The man is keeping you down with his algebra. You guys know? Well, blame the Middle East, I guess. Blame the Hindu Arabs for their number system. Everybody gets angry about everything. Wow. Okay. Anyway, any more? I like that. Anyway, we'll see you guys on Monday. Work on your homework. Take care. Stay safe and have a great weekend.